Hey everybody, Professor Snart checking in once again. It's, let's see, Tuesday, about mid-afternoon, closer to noon I suppose. So we are just finishing up our Unit 3 due date and moving into Unit 4, which is a bit of a continuation unit from Unit 3. Looking at a few more kind of writing concept type things, so we're adding a few more pieces to the puzzle as we continue to move forward. I'm also watching it rain and thunderstorm a little bit, which is pretty weird for February, but hey, it's been a weird winter so far. Okay, so as you get your grade back for the shape of an essay paragraph here, it's really important, first of all, to, like I said before, always think in terms of just the raw score out of a full 1,000. So if you're short like 5 points or even 10, it's certainly alerting you to changes that you might want to make or mistakes that you don't want to make moving forward. But also in the grand scheme of things, the purpose is not really for this to have a huge impact on your overall grade. It really is like that 5 or 10 out of the full 1,000 for the course. What really matters is that if you've made a fundamental error here, that you recognize it, and then moving forward when we do our major essays, which is of course where the big points really are, that you're not repeating those mistakes. So one of the things that you'll notice in Unit 4 at the very top is that once you have submitted your Unit 3 paragraph, there's a piece that will open up that you'll be able to see with some common mistakes that often happen in those paragraphs. So if you didn't get the grade that you would hope for, one of the first things to do is obviously look for any comments that I might have provided back, and to review the assignment itself to make sure you followed the guidelines and of course got it in on time and all that kind of stuff. But also to look at some of those common mistakes to see if maybe those are the sorts of things that you did. And you can always follow up with me as well, but I would like you to do those things before you race to emailing me. And again, if you need me to clarify comments or anything like that, I'm happy to do so. But don't get, like I said before, too caught up in the letter grade, whatever it might calculate to be. It's really more about the overall points, which is not super huge for Unit 3. That paragraph assignment is more alerting you to potential mistakes that you don't want to repeat when we are getting into our major essays towards the middle and then end of our course. You're also probably getting a sense of how quickly we move in this 8-week format. Everything is, sped up double time, so we have pretty quick turnarounds from unit to unit. So I'll just click us into Unit 4, which, like I said, a bit of a continuation unit from 3. We're focusing still on flight patterns, the short story that we read. We're doing a little bit more then, adding to our kind of knowledge about composition and also what sorts of things we're looking for in our essays, thinking about the writing process a little bit. So there's a new reading to do. I've provided it again here as a PDF. You'll see that it's an essay or a student essay about, an example essay, I should say, about this fairly famous short story, Rose for Emily by Faulkner, which you maybe have read, maybe not. It almost doesn't matter. You don't need to have a background knowledge. We're really focused just on the essay as the kind of essay that you'll be writing for our purposes. So it's a good example. I wouldn't say it's perfect by any means, and certainly some of the formatting things aren't ones that elements that we'll concern ourselves with. But definitely the analytical style of it, the tone of it, the scope of it, some of those things are really what we're looking to duplicate in the essays that you write. So there's the sample essay itself. There's a little list of things to look for, right? That, again, are good examples of sort of the conceptual stuff that we're thinking about applied in an essay writing situation that you'll also want to think about. A sample essay analysis, again, fairly small point value, but really important for kind of directing your attention to certain important things that are going on in that sample essay. A little bit about thesis statements, which for our purposes are going to be a major part of our essays. They're sort of like the anchor, that grounding thing that we build everything else out of. So it's important to understand how thesis statement works for our particular kind of essays that we're writing. A little bit about the writing process. Not that there's one and only one writing process, but it's important to be aware that you've got one, even if it's as simple as get assignment, write essay. That's not a good process, but it might be yours. That's a lot of people's. So there's no one and only that you must have, but it is important that you're aware of having a writing process. And truthfully, if you tend to be someone who struggles either with writing or it just feels more laborious than it should be, or you put tons of effort in and don't always get the grades that you want, sometimes people just say, oh, I'm not a bad writer or English isn't my thing. Often it's just a matter of writing process, and we have to go back to that drawing board to make sure that we're doing things in an order that makes sense. Or we're doing basic things like planning before just getting the assignment and writing the essay. That tends to be like our immediate response because we want to get to the writing part, the thing we've actually got to do. The last thing we feel like we should do is add a bunch of more steps. But sometimes doing some planning stages, doing some research part of it, some careful rereading of the text, those extra steps, they feel like extra, but they actually make the overall process much more efficient and, truthfully, less stressful, and in most cases more successful at the end of it. So there's a lot to be said for having an awareness of your writing process and where it works and maybe where it's not so good. Quick reading, again as a PDF, elements of the essay, a lot like the example essay kind of a deal where we're just thinking about how particular elements or pieces of an essay might work, whether it's a thesis statement or primary, secondary sources, any of that kind of stuff. There's a quick quiz to do here, but again, notice that it's open book. The point is not to memorize this stuff or anything like that. It's something that you want to learn, but then sort of internalize in a way that makes sense to you so that you can apply those concepts in the writing that we do. And that, of course, like I said before, is really where the points are for the course. So you're not really going to make or break on these quizzes, especially because it's open book, right? Everybody should just get 100%, the full points. But the trick then is to take that knowledge and apply it successfully in your writing situation when we actually get to our essays. And then we finish up with a quick discussion board having to do with flight patterns. So you're creating your own thread to answer the questions, just getting a little bit deeper into the story, and then notice that we have our response to 2 other classmates here. All right, so you're probably getting a little bit more used to how our class is laid out, kind of like what types of things that we do, sort of smaller quizzes here and there, but mostly writing, whether it's discussion board or then once we finally get to our essays. And then like I'd mentioned before, it's important to have that bigger picture here of how our units kind of scaffold as we move leading up to our first essay that we write about at the midterm phase, and then honestly we turn pretty much right around to begin the final essay, which takes us right to the end of our course. So it's all sort of building up, so we have those pieces that we can ultimately put into place. All right, so if you have any questions or concerns, be in touch with me, and I will talk with everybody soon.